From giving the OG Guardians the perfect send-off, to possibly setting up a promising future with a new team in the galaxy. Here's how Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has changed everything for the franchise. Starting off with the galaxy's finest heroes, and their grand exit. Alright, so at this point, if you haven't seen MCU's latest blockbuster yet, then what are you even doing? Because let me tell you guys, this new movie is insane. Like, I'm talking straight up best movie of the year kinda insane here. Why? Well, that's because James Gunn couldn't have ended his Goofy trilogy in a more perfect way. I mean, sure, the Guardians are no more. At least as the galaxy's mightiest heroes anyway. But for a film that was always about found family, I think James Gunn did a terrific job tying up loose ends before heading over to steer the ship at DC Studios. Now, I know you guys were worried about Gunn pulling an Infinity War kind of situation here, and wiping out the major cast to offer the franchise a clean slate. And while that did happen when Aisha and the High Evolutionary died, which by the way was so needed, it still stayed true to its tone. I mean, we got Rocket's tragic backstory, and how he was created by the High Evolutionary with a kill switch that the Guardians need to disable to save his life. Not to mention, we got MCU's first ever F-bomb in the movie too. And later, when the Guardians were able to unite one last time to save the galaxy another day, all the members then set off to find their own definitive ending as they so deserved. Just take Peter for instance. While we might have been rooting for him and Gamora to get back together, it kinda makes perfect sense that the movie didn't follow that cliché storyline. I mean the whole "I bet we were fun" bit? Yeah, Gamora might have lost her memories in the whole multiverse switcheroo, but this was a nice nostalgic ode to the previous films. Plus, with Peter going back to Earth to reunite with his granddad and his lady love joining the Ravagers, it adds this tone of finality to the Guardians' fate. I mean, here we had this group of misfits who somehow found a way to work together. And now, 3 movies in, they've all gone their separate ways to reconnect with what they've lost. Even Mantis goes off solo to find out who she is, while Nebula and Drax stay back on Nowhere to build a home for the children they rescued from the High Evolutionary. Now, the reason why I tease their fates here is because this just shows that the Guardians that we know have all sort of fulfilled their purpose in the current MCU timeline, and don't have much to do from this point on. It's interesting because since Volume 1, we've known and seen this chaotic bunch wreak havoc throughout the galaxy, with one prison break after the other. But now that they've all said their goodbyes and have had one last dance party on Nowhere, it's kinda bittersweet to realize that Volume 3 changed everything for the characters. Of course, the fans are happy that the movie was the perfect emotional send-off the team deserved, but that doesn't mean they were worried before. Cause like, here's the thing. When Gunn was fired for those not safe for work tweets he made, fans were worried about how the director would be able to do justice to the existing storylines. I mean, this man was basically in 2 places at once after Marvel fired him. And in between juggling his upcoming DC projects and rendezvousing with the Guardians one last time, he still somehow managed to give us the best MCU villains of all time. Sorry, Thanos. Ever since the movie's release, fans all over the internet have raved about just how great this movie has been. I mean, to find out that Cosmo's actually a good dog, and then have the whole story revolve around self-hatred? I mean, if I'm being honest, this has got to be the darkest Guardians movie so far, because before this, it was just a bunch of misfits on a space voyage. But now, it's about issues that run deep. When Mantis yells at Drax that he's the only character who doesn't hate himself, it's a subtle nod toward Nebula, who puts others down to make herself feel better. Plus, even the High Evolutionary's whole shtick is that he kills his creations, because they mirror his flaws. It's also why he hated Rocket the most, because our furry friend's probably the only creation of his that might have just surpassed his creator. Which brings me to Rocket's own issues too. Now, he's not exactly the happiest raccoon in the galaxy, but after learning about his kill switch destiny, and how he only views himself as a little freak good for killing and mocking, it's obvious that MCU's not just sticking to its lighthearted formula for these movies anymore. With each release, the franchise is now taking its narrative to the next level. Maybe it's their way of compensating for the questionable CGI work. But hey, Volume 3 hit the sweet spot for now. So who am I to complain? Obviously, no one was really looking forward to the Guardians breaking up. But the way things have basically unfolded for now, I think we might have another team in the mix. But to really understand how that's possible, let's first take a look at the 2 credit scenes that have foreshadowed everything. Now, the mid-credit scene is what sort of introduces us to a new roster of the Guardians. with Rocket taking center stage. And his new team's a lot like the same band of misfits that he had as his family before. I mean, the group's got Cosmo, a telekinetic dog, Adam Warlock, the galaxy's favorite himbo, Kraglin, the klutz, a very, very huge Groot, and not to mention one of the Star Kids from the High Evolutionaries prison. So you can see how all of them are completely polar opposites of each other. But somehow, when they're talking about their favorite songs at the end, and Rocket burst open into his rendition of Come and Get Your Love by Redbone, it all just seems so natural. But here's what makes this scene so monumental. As Rocket's singing, all of a sudden a stampede of aliens head straight toward them. As if by instinct, the group somehow assembles and gives us a classic group superhero pose, possibly foreshadowing their future in the franchise. Plus, if you've been a fan since the first movie, you'll pick up another Easter egg too, because Rocket's song choice wasn't a coincidence either. I mean, if you go back in time a little, in the very first scene of the 2014 Guardians movie, the same song plays as Peter tries to steal the Infinity Stone on planet Morag. So for Rocket to play the same song might just be his way of paying homage to Quill. And perhaps it's James Gunn's way of saying that the new Guardians are in town, or should I say, the galaxy. Now, while it'd be hard not to see Quill being the loser hero guy of the crew, I think it's sweet that he's able to find his purpose in the film too. Because Volume 2 definitely changed things for him. Peter's reunion with his grandfather was all kinds of emotional. I mean, the last time they saw each other was in 1988, and since then, this is the first time they've had a chance to be a family again. In that scene, Peter's just being an annoying grandchild to his old man, as the two have breakfast together. A couple moments later, he then talks about an unknown neighbor asking him to mow the lawn. Now, this is strange, because nothing is a coincidence in the MCU, right? I mean, why would they not show him or even name the guy? And who exactly is the neighbor? After all, sure, Peter's not spearheading the Guardians again, but the title card saying the legendary Star-Lord will return pretty much confirms that we'll be seeing more of him. Could it be that Marvel's saving a Chris Pratt cameo for Guardians 4? I mean, that's not entirely out of the question, right? Plus, since we've got a new team, maybe we've also got a fourth movie in the pipeline. Now, the sole purpose of Volume 3 was to say goodbye to the characters we've known for like a decade now, and bring in new faces and stories to the mix. With the new Guardians in town, it's possible that we might get another movie that'll tie in with future MCU projects. With Violet Vale, who's basically Drax's son Moondragon's love interest in the comics. So it'd be interesting to see how this could bring back someone from the original cast. And like you already know, Chris Pratt has often talked about how he's down for another movie if the opportunity ever comes up in the future. So maybe if Feige does end up giving Rocket his own movie, there's a good chance we'll see Star-Lord too. In fact, even James Gunn thinks it's possible. He says that long as somebody brings the idea to the table, and doesn't copy his genius of course, Guardians 4 is very much possible. I mean, as if anyone can ever do that. But considering how we've got the go-ahead from the guy himself, I guess the future for the brand new intergalactic hoodlums look pretty promising. So from hinting at the new Guardians of the Galaxy to saying goodbye to the OG team once and for all, here's how Volume 3 of the franchise has changed everything.